Morning, Martha.
Okay, we have a
Is he
quorum.
working in the front?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Hi, Martha.
Hello, Martha. She's in the screen. She's in the owl. She's in that thing in this. Hi, Martha. Hello, Martha. We don't have to be looked at.
Martha, can you see the agenda on the screen? Oh, okay, but I just want to make sure this is it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Is it?
No. So I'm going to call the November board meeting to order. Thank you. Good afternoon, fellow board members. Thank you for your, as usual. This is our 11th meeting in 2024 for the numerology people. And thanks for helping squeeze us in before Thanksgiving, before we all go home and make pies and turkeys and things like that. Before we go too much further, I'm going to call for a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I do.
All second? Britt, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And minutes carried for October. Drum roll, please. Okay, this month, I'm going to give you an overview of the month real quick. This month, we have almost finished our due diligence period of 6 months with the Hudson City School District to purchase the John L. Edwards School. We will discuss the findings in more detail. We're going to go into an executive session for that as there's some financial details involved. But it has been a very productive 5 months for us. We were working not just with the physical and environmental conditions of the building, but we worked really hard on the possible uses for the building, tenants and other people who might want to find a space in the new reimagined John L. Edwards. That led to some amazing collaborations with board members, community experts for landscape, construction, architecture, engineering, as well as meetings with community organizations that showed real enthusiasm for getting to know us and also getting to know this project. And we still believe that, as we did when we began the effort, that John L. Edwards is a very valuable asset to Hudson and its citizens. Besides the fondness that everyone in Hudson has for the building, our board really understood the strengths of the location, which is powerful, and the walkability of it to almost anywhere in Hudson, and the youth department's ability to take over the gym and have a great space for kids of all ages. All of this was easy for us to understand, and the civic uses for the building, the stage is there. There's places to sit when there's a big meeting or presentation. It has the perfect space to offer the whatever the activity is. So there's all of that. And of course, the educational and skilling and training programs that people wanted to bring to the school are still really powerful and still within HDC's mission. In July, as you all remember, we conducted environmental tests in the building to update the testing that was done in 2019 for the feasibility study. This was 2 weeks of work in the building with a crew of 2 people, and there they are now. Sorry. 2 weeks of work with a crew in the building, and they took 2 weeks to write the report afterwards, and we got the report in late September. We originally were thinking that this building would be a much easier upcycle. We intended originally in our first thinking to just use its configuration as it existed and remediate what needed to be cleaned up. But to change a wall or a ceiling tile or take a ceiling out or change the size of a room upsets all of everything in the building. And we have estimates to remediate it, to get it to an evaluation of a clean building, which is a New York State standard. And we will be sharing those before it's brought back to mixed uses. It's just more of it was built in the 60s, so everything in it was asbestos to be fire retardant. So when you take a wall out, the ceiling gets disrupted, and it's like a Rubik's Cube of asbestos. We have estimates to remediate it, to get an evaluation of a clean building, and also involved, which we weren't thinking about in the beginning, the heating and cooling, electric and plumbing systems will need to be significantly upgraded. The school district use some of the parts from the heating and cooling system in other buildings, which are now not using that equipment anymore. So it's been a little bit picked over during the course that it's been empty, which is too bad. Phil, Britt, and Jess Wallen have worked really hard on finding grants that will help with remediation costs. There will be more on that in our agenda later on. What other benefits of our 5 months on this project? Well, I think we've come away with a much better understanding of the needs of our community for adequate, safe, and reliable childcare to support the Hudson and Columbia County workforce. Finding a way to provide this to support a reliable workforce is our mission, and we will continue pursuing this. Our talks with Columbia Green Community College, Bard College, and the Culinary Institute of America have demonstrated their enthusiasm for bringing certificate training programs to Hudson, to citizens who want to revise their work skills or learn a new skill or become proficient at something they always wanted to do. These relationships will be important ones for HDC as we go forward. I look forward to opening these conversations right after the new year begins, to explore ways that we can both support our current workforce, but also grow one. Our business roundtables proved to be too hard to launch this fall, but I intend to ramp them up again in January with a collaboration with the Hudson Business Coalition and the Chamber, who have been involved in trying to cobble together some meetings. In this meeting, Crystal will be walking us through our bylaws revision around the board terms, which has been pressing on us kind of urgently. And many of you were invited to meet with Bob Resner, who's here, our former chair. Hello, Bob. Thank you for coming. And Don Moore, who I have to also, hats off to Don Moore. Don was a former board member for many years, and this is a room that they have had many, many conversations about Hudson, and so I salute you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So many of you were asked to meet individually with Bob to go over a project that he's been working on. Since he left us 2 years ago, he's given his time to a citizens group who've been exploring the revision of the city charter to enable revising Hudson administrative governments. They emphasize that these ideas are not about individuals, but a more modern and efficient way to manage city government. So he's going to share it with us again today. That's the culmination of all of your comments. And many of you, I know, contributed some good ideas, Bob told me. And so we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Finally, we're going to schedule our December meeting, not on Christmas Eve. I know you all want to get together on Christmas Eve day, but we're going to move it to the 17th. And I think we'll have our holiday party after that. So we might be able to slip the meeting down a little bit in the day, so it's not at noon and it's closer to the time when we can have a cocktail together. So that's that. And if there's nothing more from me, then I'm going to turn it over to our illustrious Phil Foreman.
Okay. Did everybody get a chance to look at or otherwise review the financial statements?
Yes. Yeah.
If not, no worries. I need about 6 or 7 copies because primarily because I'm living in the past when you did that. But I still do them for every meeting if anybody needs a paper copy. Just grab my notes.
You have a lot of scratch paper at your house, right?
I do.
And we are sharing it online as well.
Oh, terrific. Thanks so much.
Yep.
We continue to add to our professional fees and services. Some of that is normal state of business, UHY audit and so on, bookkeeping. But a lot of these expenses are associated with the due diligence process at JLE. In addition, well, let me pause. I'll go through the rest of financials and then there's some other stuff I wanted to share. There is no change in our brokerage portfolio. We continue to maintain the rate of return that we were looking at a while back, somewhere around 5%. It has averaged about 100K in income per year, so that's great good fortune to have had folks like Bob and others who closed the deal on that sale. In terms of stuff that I would like some approval on, we fell behind on Jess's payments for, we call it grant writing. It's a little bit more than that. It was organizing our world to communicate in different ways to different grant entities. So a lot of gathering and shaping information, putting stuff into clear packages that were required by the state, et cetera. Anywho, I'm asking, the bills had come in typically at a level that was easy for me to sign within the bylaws. They were under $5,000. But I don't want to not point out that particularly in the month of July, where we were kicking pretty hard on grant writing, et cetera, we got up to over $7,000. In total for 4 months then for grant writing and related efforts to support the grant program, data gathering, shaping data, creating plans for additional grants going forward. We've got a bill for $16,400, and I think that by the bylaws, I will need your approval. May I have a motion?
Can I make a note
Please.
about that though?
Yes,
July 30th, what a crazy time, is the date for the consolidated funding application, which was a huge push in July. When he's talking about getting information in order, he couldn't be further from the truth. It's a lot of shaping the message, a lot of defining who we are, and because we don't have a working staff, we had capability issues to explain and also outline. She gave us a tremendous amount of messaging, a tremendous amount of language about reinventing for the state granting process, who we are and what we do. And so I think it's going forward a very big investment in our ability to communicate who we are and what we do for whatever we're doing.
there, no doubt,
Yeah.
and the state has said so, in
Yeah,
fact.
yeah.
That we have a highly credible platform
Yeah.
going forward.
Okay, so Bill, you want to do a motion to approve?
I'd like a motion to approve paying for our grants manager, Jess, $16,400.
I make that motion.
Thank you, Paul. And a second, John,
John,
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much.
thank you.
A minor order of business, but I've been in touch with UHY on planning a bit ahead on the
Audit.
coming audit. That doesn't happen until after the first, but having done this more than a few times, planning now is very helpful. One of the very minor issues, we were not dinged really on anything in the previous audit, and I don't want to be dinged going forward, is it requires that whoever prepares the financial documents cannot also review them. So I'd just like to inform the board, it's
Seems normal.
not a vote item,
Okay,
that I have reviewed all of the bank statements monthly from Bank of Greene County since the beginning of the year, and similarly, all of the brokerage account statements. There's no further action. I just want it on the record for the audit.
okay, thank you. Any questions on Phil and his audit and his report? Okay, we'll move on from that. As we will be discussing financial aspects of our real estate transaction, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into a brief executive session.
Can I,
Yes,
because some brief can become long,
yes.
should we move it to the end of the?
Well, I was wondering about that. You want, okay,
It's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
okay. Should we do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Oh, no, I'm fine with that. Okay, so let's jump past that and go to Crystal and a conversation about our board terms.
Yes, so Chris came to me with some concerns because we are a working board. We don't have paid staff like a lot of not-for-profits do, and board terms that expire, it's a 3-year term with a 3-year renewal. And after that, there's no more option to extend that. New York not-for-profit corporation law allows for essentially a longer term where members of the board also have a term of office, either as ex officio or within the corporation itself. So I suggested for those officers here in HDC, the president, the vice president, the treasurer, that they also have a board seat that runs with that officer position, much like the ex officio position for mayor and common council president here on this board. That's a way to keep the management of this entity moving forward without losing a lot of the institutional knowledge that you all have developed over the years here as a very cohesive working board. So that would be my suggestion, to keep those people whose terms are expiring but are integral here in this not-for-profit, keep them on board by changing our bylaws to allow for those officers in the corporation, as well as the ex officio members from the city, to keep those board seats as long as they have those officer positions.
I have a question. So there are a number of board members who are not officers here. Paul's term is expiring in March, and Martha's is expiring, and Seth Wildeboy's is expiring. Is there any way that we can ask them if they want to serve another term and then let them do that, or is that considered in the nonprofit bylaws to be not good?
Yeah, not good, I would say. I mean, part of the reason to get new people on the board is so
Yes.
that you don't become stagnant, you have new ideas coming in, it
Okay.
keeps everything kind of fresher and newer.
Okay.
It also gives a second set of eyes on those of you who are both officers and board members.
Yes.
So you're recommending, I'm sorry, revising the bylaws as it pertains to the officers
Correct.
only? Okay.
Correct. I mean, unless this board thinks, no, we really should have members continue.
Mhm.
Who sets the term limit? Like, who sets the 3 years?
That was done by HDC.
So in theory, if you wanted board members to have like a longer seat, couldn't you up it to like 5 or 7 years?
5 years is the max term pursuant to not-for-profit law.
And the term limits, is that statute or is that just the bylaw?
It's statute. Statute terms it out at 5 years.
But the number of terms, consecutive
We have a
terms,
comment
They don't do number of terms. No, they just do
length.
what your term length is.
So the
Correct.
term limit is in our bylaw.
Correct.
Mhm.
We have 3 years with 1 3-year renewal in the bylaws currently.
Get up to 10 years.
Yeah.
Don, do you want to add something?
Would these new ex officio positions be voting?
Depends on what the board wants.
Okay, so now.
They are voting now.
Currently,
They are voting now.
Currently, they vote.
Yeah.
That's really what being on the board means, kind of,
Mhm.
too.
It just has to be clarified.
And then what is the condition for removal of an officer who goes wild? Goes rogue, yeah. Excuse me, miss, could you step over?
I should put that word in the
Go
bylaws. Should an officer go rogue?
Yeah. There's I think it says in the bylaw.
Directors may be removed for cause by a majority vote of the board at a special meeting called for that purpose. Cause shall include excessive absences from board meetings unless such absences are excused for a good cause.
Oh, that's it?
Okay, all right.
That's it.
So what's our feeling on this? Does the board want to comment on extending officers' terms? And in any way?
I think it's a great idea.
You would, you're leaving.
Have you already re-upped?
Thank you, Paul. Okay, any comments on this? So we'll revise that?
Well,
We need a motion to
yeah,
approve
the
that?
board needs to,
Okay, can I have a motion to approve
I'll make that
revising
motion.
the bylaws? Phil, second?
I'll second.
Paul? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Now that we've had that discussion and vote, where are we on recruiting?
There's a gentleman on a Zoom, Jeremy Finkel, who's in the lower screen there, who's a candidate who's considering joining our board.
Okay.
We did have a nominating committee meeting with another gentleman, Brian Sacker-Fuhrer, who is in the city this week. I was gonna have him come to the board meeting today, but, and 2 other people have presented themselves from the community that might be wanted to be considered. So the nominating committee is Kristen and Nick and and Seth Rogovoy. And they'll be meeting with any candidates who might want to join, but we do need more candidates. So if anyone has a candidate or someone you think would be good, of course, you know, the rules for boards are as diverse as possible, diversity of anything, diversity of experience, diversity of thinking, diversity of background, and love for Hudson. Those are the criteria for somebody to join this gift of time board.
There's some skills that we could double down on, as well. Like Britt, you mentioned somebody you knew with a financial background, or I'm
Land use attorney.
I have 2 financial people.
covered.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward
Phil's
to.
just looking to get
But
I'm
my
looking
land
forward
use
to
attorney
this.
can't make it to this.
to a retirement. Yeah, okay, we're good. Okay, so does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So let's move on to, let's skip the other old business, move on to the new business. Bob Rasner, I'm going to ask you to speak. You are here to do so. What's we most comfortable for? Do you want to stand up? Do you want to say where you are?
Here, is this
Okay,
okay?
you can sit at the table if you want. You know how that goes.
Good afternoon. It's good to be back in this room with you.
Oh, yeah, it's nice to have you back.
Why did I ask Christine to be on this agenda? I'd not be entirely candid with you if I did not tell you I'm comfortable here with you and with this organization. You're invested in making Hudson, our historic city, a better place for every citizen. I wanted my brief presentation today to be the first public statement to any group regarding a citizens' initiative for charter change, and for you to hear this first. When I first met with those who initiated this project several years ago, we discussed how to move beyond legal writing to public discussion. We agreed on a ground level effort. Simple get-togethers with anyone who would listen, and importantly, offer their ideas and opinions. Although the effort to bring this about has been called secret, that's far from accurate. I have personally met with almost 100 citizens, ordinary people who are interested in their city, former and present members of Common Council, business owners, a barista, city employees, a carpenter, a hairdresser, a restaurant manager, a barber, a house painter, as well as a former mayor. They listened. I listened. We left those conversations thinking about Hudson's future and how we might collectively improve our city. Until today, the revised charter has only been a discussion and a lot of notes, changing week by week, not yet printed or distributed. Yet those who find criticism the easiest response to change have already claimed our efforts to be, quote, the end of democracy in Hudson. It's well known we are proposing a change to a city manager council form of government. That's the result of all those ground level discussions. But a loss of democracy? I don't think so. Tell that to the 89 million Americans who live in 40% of all cities in our country governed in this style. Do our neighbors here in New York, 25% of all our cities governed in this style, think they've lost democracy? I don't believe that to be true. Ask the residents of Phoenix, Arizona, with 18,000 employees, to tiny Sherrill, New York, with only 3,000 residents. Do they think they've lost democracy? I don't think so. Next criticism drafted by old white guys. Well, there's some truth to that. I'm old and I'm a white guy. Does that disqualify me from being an activist and speaking out? And for the record, I didn't do any of the legal heavy lifting. The team of attorneys did that, giving unselfishly of their time and talents. Those attorneys, for the most part, are a generation younger than I. And note, this was not just guys. Women were involved in the development of the proposal and are involved in carrying it forward. If I might make a prediction, it will be the women of this community that will be instrumental in this project's success. This relatively easy charter effort involved 100 pages of the charter, Recall the Fair and Equal initiative of 8 years ago? That was extremely complex undertaking, requiring new ward boundaries. The Fair and Equal Charter Amendment failed to gain approval at City Hall and went to the voters where it passed by a margin of 2-1. The voters were not afraid of change. The voters are not afraid of change. They embraced it. The proposal we're submitting to the electorate is simple and as follows. One mayor elected. We've been doing that since 1785. I like that tradition. There are cities that have city managers that don't have a mayor. I argued in our meetings to maintain that. That's a heart of tradition in our city. 5, not 11 members of Common Council, one of whom to be elected as chair of the council by the 5 members the voters have elected. In other words, the council selects from among them the individual they feel best suited for the leadership position. 1 city manager hired by the 5-member council and reportable to them. Term limits, 3 2-year terms for elected officials. If this all sounds familiar, it should be. Think of the model used by business. The shareholders elect a board of directors. The board is in turn responsible to the shareholders. Voters elect a common council. The council is in turn responsible to the electorate. The power sits with the voters. The board of directors sets a vision for the company and establishes its policies, then hires a CEO to carry out its vision. The common council sets a vision for the city, then hires a manager to carry out that vision. The corporate CEO reports and advises the board and manages the staff of the corporation. The city manager reports and advises the common council and manages the staff of the city. The staff of the corporation report to the CEO, not to the board. The staff of the city report to the city manager, not to the common council. Like in a corporation, should the board, in our case common council, find the CEO, in our case the manager, not meeting the performance standards to which both parties agree, the manager's employment may be terminated. No waiting for the end of an elected 2-year term. Starting next month, the Hudson electorate will be asked to sign a petition that, if successful, would place this proposal on the desks of Common Council. Should, for any reason, the proposal not be approved within 60 days, it's the time limit set by the state of New York, the electorate will be again asked to sign a petition that would then circumvent Common Council and place the proposal on next year's fall election. Signatures required. The first round, 204 valid signatures of Hudson voters. Should it not be approved by Common Council, we simply need 102 signatures not having signed in the first round. That's it. 1 mayor, 1 city manager, 5 council members, term limits for all elected officials. Thank you for the opportunity to present these ideas.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Does anyone have any questions that you want to ask Bob about his presentation?
The next step for this will be, we have a table at the farmer's market starting this Saturday.
Okay,
We'll seek volunteers there. We have a brochure to hand out to participants there.
that's indoors this
Shortly
week, the first
thereafter,
indoor market, so don't go to the other lot.
Start petition signatures. We've prepared 2 sets of packages. One package, this kind of binder, includes the entire amended section of the charter. That will also be on the website, which launches this weekend. These 2 are for your 2 official, ex-official members. They
Okay,
get that kind of a binder.
They should be here in a minute.
And what is the website for the record?
And I've prepared one of these for each member of your board.
thank you.
This is the cover package. Does not include the 100 pages of city charter. It
Okay,
explains
thank
what we're doing. So I've got one labeled for
That's-
each of you.
That's fantastic, thank you.
Well, sort yours out of here and send them around.
So just reiterate the
What is the
signature
website?
thing. You need, how many signatures in the first petition? 200?
204 valid signatures.
Okay.
That number is driven by the state, which requires 10% of the voters that voted in the last gubernatorial election. So that number is, I believe, 204. If it fails to pass City Hall in those 60 days, then we go back and we get half that number, it's 5%. A bit of historic reference here. When Fair and Equal was launched, from the day this announcement was made to the day they put those in the City Hall was 3 weeks.
Pretty good.
They're not high numbers to obtain.
Yeah.
That's in a state called home rule. All states don't allow that. This state would allow any one person to do all this and bring it to the attention of the voters.
Once you have the signatures, can anyone change what you've written?
I'm sorry,
Can anyone change what you've written once you have the
because
signatures?
it's a good point. What we will be presenting and voters will be signing petitions for it. Once that's presented, not a single comma, period, or capitalization may be changed.
Okay.
Nothing may be changed.
Okay,
Now, if a member of Common Council introduced this, research says that's a pretty rare occasion when that happens, not just here, but anywhere.
Yeah.
They can change it all they like, discussion, change, you can do that.
okay,
There's 3 ways this happens. The way we're doing it, citizen referendum, introduction by a legislator, or a charter commission generally appointed by a seated mayor.
okay,
That's how Ithaca did this. Ithaca has their first city manager installed the January 1st of this year. A young man who was elected to mayor maybe 3 terms ago, came to office in his second term, said, we need something different here. Brought this forth. He formed a charter commission. They developed it, adopted. It
fascinating.
always is a referendum. It always needs to go
Fascinating,
through
okay.
voters.
Any questions, Britt?
I have a question. When you were mentioning the hierarchies of who reports to whom, when the city has contracts for outside consultants or for contractors that do sidewalk work, currently it's being reviewed by a department head, and then I believe the common council approves the fee to proceed. What's the channels now? Will the city manager approve those and oversee all those contracts, or will it still go through common council?
Has to go to the common council.
It has
Common
to,
council controls the purse.
always, even with city manager.
Yeah, we don't change that in this petition.
Okay.
It's the
The
same.
department heads, however, the other piece of your question, will report to the city manager.
And the city manager advises the common council?
Correct,
And they ultimately decide.
correct.
Sounds like there's a chain of responsibility in that loop too.
And what is the website that you mentioned where all this information
Well, that's a really good question.
It's coming.
is? Oh, it's coming, it's in
Yeah,
development.
it'll be launched on this weekend.
Okay,
So one of the things that this group had difficulty agreeing with is the catchphrase. When we started, we said, we need, because most of us on this worked on Fair and Equal, we need something as good as Fair and Equal. Well, we came up with everything. And then we asked and we came up with everything. It bounced between Hudson Refreshed. A lot of people thought it sounded like sprinkling cold water on the lettuce at the grocery store. Or Hudson Renewed, we kind of like that. In one of my meetings explaining this, a young woman said to me, thank God help is on the way. I'm not so sure that's the appropriate phrase. The website will probably come up because we own the URL is hudsonrefreshed.com.
Refresh, not renewed.
Refresh.
That's not what that says. That says Hudson Renewed.
Yeah.
Got it.
But
If this is the biggest problem we have,
Well, it is a big problem though, because you need
We could
consistency.
probably buy Hudson renewed for $10 and do it that way, so.
Yeah.
You know, the fellow that's working on all that is, he and I are meeting this afternoon, so we'll finalize all that.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions from anyone? Okay, thank you. Don, did you want to say something?
You know, briefly I do.
Good.
Because I think all of you know that I was Common Council President here for 6 years, and I served on the Board of Supervisors, and I worked for Rick Rector for about 9 or 10 months. But something occurred to me that about the mayors with whom I've worked over that period of time that I think proves the truth of what we're trying to achieve here, which is that Rick Scalera was in office for 17 years. He was, at the time that I knew him, an extremely competent mayor. You'd have disagreements with him, but he was good at his job. Following that, there were another 4 mayors, all of whom served one term. And that turnover does not serve the city well. And if you look back on it, I mean, the tumult from that, now, without any regard to the current administration, which was one with which I have not had the same relationship, it shows you that what inconsistency can do and what consistency could do with a professional in charge. Thank you.
Thanks. Good point. Okay, anything else on this? All right, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the old business in the back where we came from. So I'm going to ask for a brief executive session. Can I have a motion to go into executive session? Nick first, second John. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we will, did you mute him?
Yeah, now he's,
Can you hear me? Jeremy, thanks for joining us today. This is Jeremy Finkel on the screen here in Hudson. And will be probably meeting with us in a further way in the future. He's just auditing the board meeting today. Thank you for coming. You're welcome. Okay, we're going to go into executive session. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Well done.
Which means, now, just to clarify, Martha is going to be in the session. Can she be in it?
if she, Martha, you're muted.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay, so now is there a way, the public is not in, just Martha?
Just Martha, let me just stop.
Okay.